All right, the last part of our ecology unit is understanding how living things interact with one another in an ecosystem and the different types of relationships that they have with other living things. First off, we need to understand that in this world there are either producers or consumers. Producers are the organisms that can produce their own food through photosynthesis. These are plants and algae and also some bacteria and other organisms. We also call these producers autotrophs. We have consumers. These are the organisms that obtain energy by consuming other organisms, and we call them heterotrophs. So when it comes to consumers, we have herbivores. These are the animals that get their food from plants. Examples would be a cow or a rabbit. They strictly eat plants. Carnivores are the animals that get their food from other animals. They only eat meat. When you think about this, you have to also consider the predator and prey relationship. So if you have a lion that stalks a zebra, the zebra is now the prey, and the lion is the predator. We also have scavengers that fall into this category. They are carnivores of opportunity. They come along behind a predator, and they will eat their leftovers, essentially. So similar to, like, let's say a hyena. Sometimes we have competition, which is a conflict that results when organisms attempt to use the same resources. If you have two different packs of lions going after the same animal, then you will have some competition, and there are different relationships involved with that. They have to weed out the competition in order to get their food source. We also have omnivores. These are animals that eat both plants and animals. We have detritus. We need to consider this. This is the waste products of plants and animals, and we have animals that eat them called detritivores. We have decomposers. Those are the special organisms that break down nutrients. So they come along and decompose something that is dead. Now, when we look at these relationships, we look at it in a food chain. We have to have producers, consumers, and decomposers for the food chain to work efficiently. We also have a combination of multiple food chains that are put together to make a food web. And then we can look at it in an ecological pyramid as well, which can be represented by trophic levels. Each level of the pyramid is a trophic level, and you have producers at the bottom, and then you have biomass might be part of that. And we also can look at the energy at each level, or we can also use it to look at the number of organisms at each level. So the bottom level is always producers, and then you have herbivores that eat the plants, and the carnivores are above that. So it's kind of like looking like at a food chain, but you're looking at this pyramid instead, and it represents the amount of energy that is available to each of those trophic levels. Symbiosis is the interaction between organisms within an ecosystem. There are special names for different relationships. First, we have parasitism. This is an organism that depends on a larger organism or a host for food, and it typically weakens the host over time. So the parasite gains and the host loses. Mutualism is a mutually beneficial relationship. They both benefit from the relationship, so they like for this to happen. There's certain examples of this, like bacteria that live in our intestines. We cannot digest various materials like cellulose that we get when we eat plants. So there are bacteria in our intestines that will come along and digest that cellulose for us. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. It helps us to digest the material, and it also gives the bacteria the opportunity for food, and so it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Commensalism is when one organism benefits and the other one is neither helped or harmed. So this would be an example of, say, a remora that's attached to a shark. So the shark is not harmed in any way. The remora gets the food that the shark leaves behind. Neutralism is when two organisms or more than that share the same habitat without directly affecting each other. They can live and coexist in that area. They don't have any kind of competition. They're not harming each other. They're not affecting each other in any way. Amensalism is when one organism is injured while the other is unaffected. So you should be able to give an example of a producer and a consumer. And you should also be able to give an example of an herbivore, omnivore, and carnivore from the deciduous forest biome. So go back to your notes on biomes, look at the types of animals that are in each of those biomes, and give me an example of an herbivore, omnivore, and a carnivore.